something a lot of people don't understand is people's wounding, people's trauma, people's pain that hasn't been felt or dealt with. And that's the majority of people today on Earth. It has a major impact on how they live their lives. Because the majority of people on Earth are running away from their pain and creating a life, literally creating a life in resistance to feeling that pain. And when I say creating a life, I mean taking jobs. And again, guys, this is all subconscious. This is all not necessarily known to the person at a conscious level. And the reason why I talk about this is because there's two groups of occupations. Number one being doctors, and number two being news reporters, journalists, anchors, that this tremendously affects. And because it affects them, it affects the human race, especially the United States, because of what's going on. Doctors' primary trauma, unresolved trauma, is this idea in their minds from a very young age that they're unintelligent, that they're dumb, they're stupid. Perhaps they've had a narcissistic parent that was insecure, and they took the insecurities out and projected them onto the kid. Now we're living in a country, in a world where many doctors, the occupation draws these little trauma children to it because the industry touts itself as, oh, if you're a doctor, then you're really smart, then you are super intelligent, yada, 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 yada. But the thing is, guys, and again, it's not so much that doctors are unintelligent as it is that they think that they are. So they created a whole life around being intelligent so that they could not have to feel their pain of, what they thought they were. But it's more so that because they're so in resistance to their true essence, to their true authenticity, and because they're in resistance mode most of their lives, a lot of them are heavily involved in other coping mechanisms, whether that's alcohol, whether it's busyness, whether it's whatever it is. Their hearts are closed. Their heart centers are closed. So again, it's less about calling doctors unintelligent and more tuning into the truth that a lot of them have their hearts closed. And at the end of the day, they're really just prescribing pills to people for the most part. Again, this is not all doctors, but it's a majority of doctors. To really see what's going on in the world right now, you really have to take doctors off of their pedestals. You have to stop thinking that all doctors know what they're talking about, that, for example, most doctors have no idea of the ingredients in the vaccines. They have no idea. They read their their JAMA magazines or whatever, trade magazines that come to them in the mail from their medical schools. And many of them don't realize how infiltrated all of those trade magazines and just the medical system in general are by the pharmaceutical industry. So the people who are making the temporary solutions to all this disease in the world are the ones training the doctors that are talking to the patients, and it's quite a vicious cycle that, again, if you're not super aware, you'll still put doctors on this pedestal of, oh my gosh, like, if this person is a doctor, then I need to trust what they say. If you've done enough living in your own life, you'll realize pretty quickly that a lot of them have no idea what they're talking about. And I say that with love, but guys, Like, again, like, we gotta, like, there's a difference between judging. This is coming from a place of non-judgment, but rather a place of illumination, of a place of telling it like it is, cutting through the BS, and really taking our critical mind back, our intuitive mind back, and questioning status quo beliefs. And now on to journalists and anchors and news reporters. A lot of them have the wounding of not being seen, not being heard. And just like doctors, in order to feel their pain, they have to admit that they were wrong. They have to admit that let me back this up. So, sorry, this is coming in. So, their rightness, right? The media and doctors right now is going along with the mainstream narrative, the mainstream story that we're being sold, okay? In order for them to take back their critical minds and start accepting some of the truths that are clearly not truths and that are lies given to us by the systems that are controlling us currently, or that think they're in control, however you want to look at it, they have to admit that they were wrong. Doctors have to admit that maybe vaccines aren't that great, or maybe everyone shouldn't be taking them, or newscasters have to admit certain statistics that were pushed or lied, or have to come to terms with what the PCR test actually is. What I'm saying is this illusion is held in place quite brilliantly, to be honest, because these two groups of people, doctors and newscasters, if they admit that they're wrong, which would be stepping more into the truth because what they've been sold all along is a lie, they would have to face their pain of being unintelligent, of being wrong, of being not seen in terms of newscasters and anchors. So a lot of them aren't going to do that until it gets to the point where they have no choice. But we're not quite there yet, but we're getting close to that. But what I'm saying is, know people's trauma. If you don't know why people do the things that they do, and again, we're operating in a world right now where most people are a bitch to their subconscious and they have no idea about it. But the more that you can tune into why people do what they do, why people have gone into the professions that they do, the illusions of they're better than me, they know more than me, you know, medical school taught them things that I don't know because I didn't go to medical school, or, you know, the media knows certain things because they're connected and they have, you know, access to people that know my best interest better than me. We have to start collapsing these storylines and start taking these people off the pedestals and start seeing them for the wounded children that they are, that are now adults, but that still have a lot of trauma that, again, keeps these false narratives in place, because if they were to step into the direction of their pain, they'd have to feel their trauma, and a lot of them aren't ready to do that yet. Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, you have to mourn the trust that you had for these institutions, right? You have to mourn, you have to have your own journey of purging the lies of, you know, doctors knowing what's best for you and news anchors having your best interest. And again, a lot of them still think they do. They don't know any better. I say this in other videos, just because someone tells you and genuinely feels that they love you doesn't necessarily mean that they love you. Because people's definition of love is different, and people's knowledge of best interests is different. When you start entering into higher states of consciousness and you get more intel, more information on this world, your understanding of things increases. So things that perhaps you can see, doctors can't necessarily see because their heart is more closed than yours. And we live in a universe that that benefits those with hearts open, that feel with their heart and their gut and not with their mind, because the mind will only take you so far. The mind will only serve you, you know, if you're leading just from your mind and not your heart, up to a third dimensional viewpoint. When a lot of the truths of the world are more anchored in that ability to read energy, to sense out situations with your heart, which is what we're all stepping into as a human race. But now it's super important, again, to look at people's trauma and see what they're really all about, what makes them tick. Because I'm telling you, there's a lot of even good-hearted doctors out there, but because their heart is closed, because they're not even aware that they're not facing their trauma and their pain, and they're in this role, this occupation, to forever trying to escape that pain, it's keeping illusions in place. It's keeping illusions in place, and we get to dismantle them now. Peace.